This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Coming up next on Plains FM is Find Your Bliss.
Hello, Bliss lovers. It is Rebecca Davison, intuition coach and mentor and founder of the Intuitive Life Academy. Welcome to the Find Your Bliss show here on Plains FM, broadcasting every 9 a.m. on a Thursday. And this is the show, folks, where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, and intuitive. So today, folks, we're talking about self-worth and what is it really, and why would you want to explore self-worth? So it may seem apparent, but it's always good to investigate and look at things from the perspective of why. So we have been doing the Self-Worth Week in the Intuitive Life Academy on Facebook. You're more than welcome to join us, but I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk to this topic because it is something that I see in my coaching practice with my clients. It's a common denominator. Usually when clients come and see me, on some level, they haven't fully activated their power and they are navigating their own self-worth relationship. So what I did in the Facebook group on Monday is I actually started off about talking about what self-worth is not. And I think that's a really good place to start because there's often a lot of misconception around what self-worth is. And also too, I didn't make it a self-love challenge. I made it a self-worth challenge. And the reason for that is because in the truth, love is who you are. So when we are in a circumstance where, we're wanting to do a challenge to get to know ourselves better, that is who we are. So that is the end result. So the self-worth process is really about the activation of the process of knowing ourselves as love. But that's not actually the definition. I'll come back to that in a moment. But let's explore this a little bit further by starting with what self-love is not. And this was it was really interesting in the Facebook group. A lot of people were actually kind of shocked. A lot of people were surprised. A few people said, oh my goodness, the penny has dropped. I've had eureka moments just from listening to this. So I'd encourage you to settle in, folks, because some of this information might be quite revelatory for yourself as well. So let's look at what self-love is not. So let's start, right? The list being self-worth, is not your body shape. It is not your eye color. It's not your level of intelligence. It's not the car you drive. It's not the business that you run. It's not your education. It's not your social class. It's not your accomplishments. It's not who you're in relationship with. It's not your friends. It's not where you went on holiday. It's nothing materialistic. It's nothing that you can actually achieve within yourself. It's none of those things. And you might be sitting there thinking, what is she talking about? Like, how do you not get self-worth from those things? So let's define this even further. Self-love is the quality of the relationship that you're having with yourself. Okay? Self-love is self-worth. Keep on saying self-love. Isn't that funny? Self-worth is the quality of the relationship that you're having with yourself. Okay, so just let that sink in for a moment. Your self-worth is reflected in the quality of the relationship that you are having with yourself. So your self-worth does not come from your bank account. It doesn't come from the car that you drive. It doesn't come from other people validating you. It doesn't come from other people saying that you're great or that you're awesome or that you're okay. It doesn't come from the fact that you have a master's degree or you don't have a master's degree. It doesn't come from your level of education. It doesn't come from your clothes or your hair or your shoes or how many kids you have or how amazing your partner is. It doesn't come from any of those things. Your self-worth is unique to you in the respect that it's about the relationship you are having with yourself, namely the quality of the relationship that you are having with yourself. You're having a relationship with yourself always, indefinitely, until you pass from the earth plane. So it's a really pertinent question to ask yourself, am I actually enjoying this relationship, and what is the quality of it? So this can be a massive relief in a lot of ways for a lot of people, because you actually realize that your self-worth is not dependent on anything outside of you. And this is where the ego can trip us up a little bit, right? Because the ego likes to convince us that if we achieve, then we are worthy. It will say, once you get your degree, then you'll be worthy. Once you get married, then you're worthy. Once you have children, then you're worthy. Once you make a lot of money, then you are worthy. Once you have 3 holidays a year, then you are worthy. Once you've read enough books, then you will be worthy. Once you've excelled enough as an athlete, then you will be worthy. Once you weigh the right amount, then you will be worthy. And it's all BS. Right? So it might be a relief in some ways to know that your self-worth is not dependent on anything outside of you. I'm super passionate about this, folks, because I think it causes so much agony and heartache for people. We talked a little bit about destination addiction, and how we can be, as humans, we can be caught up in the next big thing. We get addicted to the next outcome. So it might be thinking, if I make $100,000, then I'll be happy. Or if I make $1 million, then I'll be happy. Or if I just get that great relationship, then I'll be happy. But what happens is one of two things. We get it, and then we're not happy. Or we don't get it, and we convince ourselves that we are incomplete somehow because we don't have it. So we're tying ourselves up in these knots of illusion, because the illusion is that your self-worth comes from anything outside of yourself. It does not. So you need to take your power back from anywhere you have invested in collective consciousness that says, and you think about it, a lot of marketing and advertising is geared towards this, which is you need to have these shoes and then you'll be cool. Or you need to have this computer and then you'll be complete. Or you'll be seen as intelligent or worthy. Or you need to achieve this in your life or your career, and then you can be happy. Then you can experience self-worth. Then you'll know that you've made it. And it all really is, constructed in a really unclear way, which doesn't actually bring us what we really desire, which is to know that we are happy and complete now. So we really need to unpack all those places where we've invested pride in our achievements or our outcomes. When you take your power back from that, you realize you can be happy in this moment without having achieved anything. You can actually go, I choose to be happy now. I'm not dependent on a particular outcome to be happy. That's incredibly liberating and incredibly freeing. A lot of people think that they need criticism or judgment in their lives to motivate themselves. No, you don't. You can still be motivated without having to criticize or judge yourself or constrict your energy. Kind of goes against itself in terms of quantum physics, right? If you want to feel good, your energy wants to be expanded and open. If you're criticizing and judging yourself, you're literally restricting and limiting your energy. So you're not going to feel good through judgment. So this is one thing that, of course, comes up in relationship to self-worth, where we are systemically judging ourselves in a default position. Your language and what you say to yourself is super important. But we're going to unpack that a little bit more later. So on the first day of this self-worth week, we have been looking at what self-worth is not. So self-worth is not, again, the car you drive, your eye colour, your height, your weight, the quality of your clothes, where you send your children to school, your social status, your level of education, what you've achieved. It's none of that. It is unique to you. It's essentially untouchable because it's an internal process. As they say, happiness is an inside job. And this can be incredibly liberating because we can realize that we can let go of our concern or our stress on what we look like or what we weigh or how accomplished we are or how many books we've read or how many programs we've done. We can let go of all that. But choosing to let go of that also means that we're willing to take our attention from the external and swing it around to the internal, which means really getting comfortable with putting the spotlight on ourselves. So that's really the next evolution from what's occurring in our self-worth week, which is to realize that it's an internal process. It has got nothing to do with external, so we need to be willing to shift our focus onto ourselves. And for a lot of people, that can make us feel really uncomfortable. Maybe there's been emotions that you have been suppressing. Maybe you're feeling depressed because you don't know what it is to fully feel your emotions. Maybe you're bumping up against some limiting beliefs that might come to the surface. Maybe your intuition, you feel, would tell you something that you don't want to hear, like you're in the wrong relationship or you're doing a job that you don't really love. And there's part of you that feels uncomfortable with addressing that because you don't feel like you have the power or confidence to change things. So what we need to start doing really is learn how to approach ourselves. If we're getting ready to do a journey of more introspection and getting to know ourselves better, which I'm sure you'll appreciate, even when it comes to getting to know other people, it takes time, right? It takes time to show up and to be present and to ask questions and to build rapport and to get comfortable with learning about somebody. And we need to be able to apply this to ourselves. So what does that look like? I want you to imagine, this is what I asked the folks in the Facebook group to do. I want you to imagine that if you're going to a party and you see somebody that you're interested in, that you're like, oh, they seem like a cool person, I'd really like to get to know them. How would you know that? By just looking at them, how would you know that? Is it what they're wearing? Is it their energy? Is it their personality? Is it the way that they speak? I want you to start thinking about how you would know that you wanted to get to know them. From there, we discovered, of course, that, how would we approach them if we wanted to get to know them better? There has to be something within ourselves that kind of resonates, that says, oh, that person seems interesting to me, or somewhere you have made an evaluation that they are valuable, that they are worthy of getting to know, that you're happy to give them your time and attention. But then starting to realize, if you wanted to approach them and get to know them, what would you be doing? You'd probably be wanting to bring a positive attitude. You would be curious. You would be interested. You would be already seeing them as valuable. And then what we can understand is, if we're going to get to know that person, this is what we can do for ourselves. If we flip this around, are we prepared to be friendly and open and curious with ourselves? This is how we start to develop and cultivate our relationship with our own self-worth, by cultivating our relationship with self. And of course, to do this relationship, we need to learn the rules of engagement. We need to have a clear path in terms of how do I want to be treated? How would I like to be approached? If somebody saw me across the room at a party, how would I like to be approached? Presumably, you would like to be approached with somebody obviously demonstrating that they're really interested in you, that they see you as valuable, that they already see you as worthy, that there's something about you that fascinates them, that they are interested or curious or magnetized to your energy, that they're willing to be open and friendly and to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're not coming up to you with their judgment or their criticism or their blame. They're coming up to you with an open, friendly, enthusiastic, and curious attitude. And of course, what we need to learn to do is to extend that to to ourselves. So really getting to that place of recognizing that because we can quite happily do this for other people. Have you noticed that? That we quite happily give other people the benefit of the doubt. If we're curious and open and interested, we will quite happily offer that to them. However, what happens is we don't always treat ourselves to the same standards. And I appreciate, because we're having our own experience, we're living our life, we're in our body. Sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees, but it's our job to go, if I can extend that to somebody else, if I'm willing and happy to extend that to a stranger, based on the fact that on some level I'm curious about them or I'm interested in their energy, what on earth is actually stopping me from doing that to myself? So this is really how we need to learn how to approach ourselves. And why do we want to do this? Why would we want to get to know anybody? We want to get to know other people so we can understand how they tick. We want to get to know other people so we can learn how we can help them. We want to get to know other people so it makes it easier, so we can harmonize with them, so we can create more intimacy, have more fun, have closer relationships. And again, as human beings, we are wired for connection. It's a primal instinct to connect. However, what we need to learn is, how do we extend that energy to ourselves? So super important idea there and thought process in terms of extending ourselves that love, energy and vibration. So folks, I wanted to, to clarify really, the self-worth process is really the process of self-inquiry. If we have an understanding of what self-worth is not, i.e. it's nothing external, then we need to start cultivating that courage to go, okay, well, if I'm going to start approaching my relationship with myself, how do I want that to be? How do I want to be treated? And then putting those steps in place. And I think one of the biggest places to start looking is to really start evaluating the language that you speak. So starting to be aware of your thought processes. Now, this is a slightly different process. Really with intuitive work, what we do is we work on the emotional field most often, and then on the subconscious. And it's kind of like the conscious mind, the subconscious being, where all the information of data is stored. Your subconscious remembers everything that has happened, but your subconscious also kind of can distort things and delete things. So it's kind of like a not so great filing system of all the experiences that you've ever had and the meaning that you have associated to those experiences as well. So you have your conscious mind, which is your conscious, rational, waking mind. You have your subconscious, where all the information is stored. And then you have your superconscious, which is your spirit, your soul, your connection to your higher self. So when we start doing intuitive work, of course, we're activating, we're using our rational mind to focus our attention. We're starting to use higher frequencies of energy, connection to source, to go into our subconscious and to kind of clean up the files, right? To get our filing system neat and tidy so we can feel, that sense of satisfaction that you get from decluttering. It always feels really good to be in that space where you can experience life from a place of more harmony, more peace, more joy, more comfort, more freedom, pleasure and abundance. So to do that, of course, though, we still need to activate and harness the rational mind. And this is where, how many thoughts do we have? Like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are the same as the day before. So we're very habitual beings. So this is why doing things like having a daily practice, which I'm sure you've heard me bang on about indefinitely, right? Every day where you take the opportunity to focus your attention in the way that you want it to go. But a big part of that, of course, is being aware of your thought processes and how your thought processes impact your physical body. Your thought processes, of course, they create a chemical reaction in your body, which floods into your body and creates a physical feeling. So if you're thinking thoughts of joy, happiness, feeling loved, feeling supported, you're creating a chemical reaction in your body, which biologically results in a feeling, i.e. you feel good. Your energy feels good. You're running energy in a way that is congruent with how life is supposed to be. This is how we know that we're in alignment with the universe, because we feel good. Now, the trick is, of course, if you're not feeling good, the first thing to do is to stop judging yourself. I've talked about this extensively before, how I've seen it with clients and have seen it within myself in the past, where we judge ourselves for feeling bad. So you're already feeling contracted in your energy field, you're experiencing dissonance, you're experiencing suffering, and then your beautiful little rational mind turns around and says, oh, I feel bad, this is terrible, I'm a bad person, or I'm wrong for feeling this way. It's like pouring concrete on top of an already contracted experience. So one of the first things we need to do if we're not feeling great, or life isn't going the way that we want it to, is to learn how to bring the energy of acceptance to what it is that we are thinking. So looking at it this way, if you bring the energy of judgment or resistance to your thought processes, you know what resistance feels like? It just kind of feels like it gets harder and harder and harder. One of the best things you can do is collapse the paradigm by saying to yourself, you know what? I'm feeling like rubbish right now. And I'm just going to choose to love and accept myself in this moment. Now, when you have the ability to do that and to just be present, I even encourage people to turn the feeling up. Now, you may have noted why. People are like, why would you do that? Because if you allow yourself to fully feel the feeling, it will shift. Now, what happens often is people go, oh my goodness, this is so uncomfortable and I can't stand it. But if they're fully turning the feeling up, it's kind of like a wave, right? The wave rolls in and then eventually the wave will break. That is exactly what happens with your feelings. Have you noticed that your feelings peak and trough? And they move through. You can't be thinking of stuff that you're grateful for and be feeling miserable at the same time, which is why people often say and promote gratitude, because it shifts you out of a funk. But you're going to be the one who is going to determine whether that's possible or not. You're the only person who can be discerning and go, okay, no, this emotion is overwhelming me and I can't shift myself out of it, or not. Right? It takes practice to learn how to do that, to learn how to flow, especially if your energy's been flowing. Say it's been flowing down the ditch and the ditch is contraction and feeling guilty and feeling like life sucks. And then you're wanting to redirect that energy into a new kind of waterway, which is freedom, experience, expansion and love. It's going to take some time to redirect it. You are going to need to be the gatekeeper of your own thoughts and recognize when your thoughts pull you out, right? When your thought process pulls you back to a place which feels more contracted, you need to be aware of that. The first thing you can do though, right, is bring acceptance. Do not judge yourself. Allow yourself to be having the experience that you're having. However, bring awareness to it. The awareness is, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm kind of being a bit critical, a bit mean to myself. You know what? I'm going to choose something else, or I'm going to be at least aware and bring some loving acceptance to this and encourage myself to let the energy move through and then free focus my thoughts and attention. And it is a practice. Now, and it takes time, but it doesn't need to be indefinite. The more you practice, the quicker you will get the results that you want. I remember one day driving to the radio station, actually, funny thing, and driving along, and simultaneously I had a thought process where I could see that it was going to take me into a place where I felt miserable, like it was an old habit to kind of think a thought process, which took me to this place where I felt crummy. And in the same moment, it's like my mind recognized it, and it had kind of almost gone on to automatic pilot. And my mind recognized it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to think that thought. I'm not going to allow my mind to go to that place where I end up feeling crummy. However, and that was a moment of self-mastery for me, because I was like, well, that's self-mastery in a nutshell, to recognize your thought patterns, to be aware, and then to actually say, no, I'm not choosing that, because I know it's not going to make me feel good. However, and that was an awesome moment, because I was like, oh my goodness, this works. I've finally gained that place where my own mind can interrupt my own thoughts and therefore redirect how I actually want to feel. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking that it's not possible, folks, be encouraged that it actually is, but it does take practice. And one of the first things that you can do in regards to doing this is actually be in a space where you're starting to monitor what you say to yourself. So starting to ask yourself, if somebody came along and sat in my mind for a week, would they be like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, like these thoughts are just incredible, and I love this place, and it's so full of light and love and harmony and bliss? Or are they just like, oh my goodness, this is like a horror show, like this is like a war movie, like this is like the most violent thing I've ever seen, and I can't stand it, right? Really starting to wonder, if somebody came and observed your thought processes, why we want to invite somebody in? Because we are so mean to ourselves. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to other people. And this is how we learn what level of judgment we are at. If you had somebody in your mind and you are allowing yourself to think the thoughts that you think, maybe it's not your circumstance, maybe you've done some work on yourself, but more often than not, people can be pretty cruel to themselves. And that, inviting somebody in, it really gives you that barometer to actually say, if somebody was there listening, would they be horrified? Would they get up and say, hey, stop it, you're being so mean to yourself, don't do that? Because this is often what happens. We're cruel to ourselves, and we can extend love and kindness to others, but we fail to do it to ourselves. And this is actually inauthentic. If we can't genuinely express love to ourselves, then guess what? We genuinely don't have it for other people, which is why consciousness shows us that if people don't love themselves, they cannot love other people. And this can be shocking and confronting, especially if there's people in your life that you really love, but they don't love themselves. It can be really tough, because if they don't love themselves, they can't love you. It's not that they don't want to, it's just maybe that right now they don't know how to. So, because all our relationships always come back to ourselves, they come back to our own mind, our own perception, and our own filters. Whether somebody thinks that you're great or you're awful is formulated in their own mind through their own perception, through their own filters. Which is why you can see why this self-worth process is so powerful, because the quality of that relationship of self-worth and self comes back to what you are saying to yourself about yourself. Do you actually like yourself? Do you trust yourself? Do you back yourself? Now, this was really interesting to me. I asked these questions in the Facebook group on Monday. One of the questions was, do you back yourself? Which is slightly different from, do you stick up for yourself? So backing yourself might be like, yes, I believe in myself. There was one woman who actually said it was really telling for her. She said that she backed herself at like an 8, but she stuck up for herself at a 2, because one's kind of more of an internal process and the other one's more external. So even asking yourself, I thought that was really interesting, right? That she could back herself, but when it came to other people, she found it difficult to stick up for herself. So even noticing for yourself, are you backing yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you know what you stand for? Do you know what your values are? I think that's a huge part of personal development, is knowing what you value. For me, for a while, I used to think value was kind of like, what's a value? It's where you place your focus and attention and where you think it's important. What do you value? And this is why I often talk about values, because it was such a game changer for me to realize that there was nothing wrong with me when I didn't like my job in banking. I didn't value it. And therefore, I felt like something was wrong with me because I was trying to force myself, the square peg into the round hole. It was like, stop trying to force yourself into something that you don't value. Just find something that you do. And of course, the values of the Intuitive Life Academy being freedom, pleasure, and abundance. I wasn't experiencing that in my job and in my role. So it was a light bulb moment for me to go, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have a different value proposition from what is being offered here. So I'm not wrong and the bank's not wrong. It's just that I'm in the wrong place. So for me to go out and set myself up in self-employment, it ticked all the boxes in terms of my values because I got to experience the freedom, the pleasure, and the abundance. So it was a real game changer for me in terms of happiness and exponentially increasing my happiness and realizing that there was nothing wrong with me. When you've been working for a bank for 13 years and for, a large percentage of that time that you think something's wrong with you because you're not really appreciating what you're doing, even though you can do it and you're good at it, but you're not really appreciating it. It was a real revelation for me. So coming back to self-worth, getting to know yourself better, asking yourself those questions. Do you trust yourself? And if you don't, if it's not a 10 out of 10 in regards to trusting yourself, why is that? Is that because you can back yourself, but you don't stick up for yourself? Another really great question to ask yourself is, do you find it easy to say no to things that you don't want to do? Or another litmus test is, do you go into excuses when somebody asks you if you can do something? A person who really values themselves, they won't have to give an excuse, right? They'll just say, that doesn't really work for me, or that's not where I'm placing my focus right now. As opposed to how so many people go, oh, I'm so sorry, and they come up with an excuse. And often the excuse is a fib or a lie, and both parties know it. Instead of actually having enough self-worth to say, no, thank you, that doesn't work for me. And that's it, right? The guilt starts to happen when we start to go into justifying why we're saying no, because there's part of us that feels guilty, as opposed to just being like, no, thank you. And you can see how the good girl or the good guy energy gets us so tripped up. We think that it's not okay to say no to people. Where did we get that idea from? That it's rude, that if we turn around and say, no, I'm not open to doing that, even if it's depleting us or we're giving to so many other people. We are the only ones who can determine our boundaries, and boundaries are huge in terms of your self-worth. And boundaries are also kind of where the rubber hits the road in terms of implementing self-worth. Because if you're sitting there saying to yourself, oh, I really love and appreciate myself, but if you're not following through with action, then your body knows that you are lying to yourself. I know, given the example before about how there was one circumstance where I was asked to do something and I can't even remember what it was, but I said yes, and immediately my body was like, I don't want to do that, right? It's like my body very loudly and very clearly gave me the message, you've made a mistake, you need to turn that down. I feel uncomfortable, right? Like I hadn't checked in with my body first and asked my body, is this a yes or a no for us? And my body was like, no, I don't want to do this. So, and the tension was incredible though. Like I had to do something about it immediately. So I pretty much had to pick up the phone, contact this person, say, look, I'm really sorry. I know I've just said yes, but I have checked in with myself and I actually need to say no to that. And, maybe offer a solution about referring somebody else, etc. But be in that space of like, that's a no for me. And as soon as I got off that phone call, it's like my body physically relaxed. And that is very clear intuitive guidance. That is how your body gets your attention, but you need to become sensitive to it. We need to do the work of being able to hear what it is that our body is saying, because your body runs the energy of truth. We need to be the ones to tune into that within our side of ourselves, get the information, and then follow through on it. But it was a really amazing experience for me because it taught me a lot about the wisdom that your body has, but also what happens when you go out of alignment with your truth, right? And this is how, dis-ease can be created, because we're not listening to our physical bodies. We're not tuned in on a very sensitive level to what is occurring in regards to our bodies. So super, super powerful. So, of course, as soon as I had said no and I had maintained my boundary, and, because my body knew on some level that it was going to deplete me, it was going to drain me, it wasn't to my advantage. And a lot of people might listen to that and think, oh my goodness, that sounds so selfish. But you also have to check inside your own body, right? This is where we need to learn what it is to shift out of our rational mind and go, actually, what is true for me? Because is my mind and my thought processes, are they lying to me? And how does that show up? A lie can show up in the form of, I'm not good enough, or I'm not allowed that, or I don't have permission to go after that, or, if I do this, it's going to have XYZ consequence. But you don't actually know what that is until you do it, or until you at least have the conversation or bring it up with people. And this is how people get so tripped up. Instead of being internal and going, how do I feel? What feels good? What feels expanded? How can I navigate that with other people in my life? How can I broach that? How can I get them on board? How can I get them excited if this is something that I'm really passionate about? They go, oh my goodness, that person will go, they make assumptions. That person will say no. My husband won't like that. You don't know until you've asked your husband, right? You don't know. You can't make assumptions about what other people think and feel, no matter how well you think you know them. You need to be prepared to offer them the benefit of the doubt. If they have a bad attitude about something, is that your problem? No. If you're all inspired and lit up and excited about something, are you really going to let somebody's bad attitude stop you from doing it? If you have passion, if you have a will, there is a way. You just need to find the solution. You need to be creative, and there are always people out there being creative. I remember listening to, I think it was Wayne Dyer, talking about a woman who was so committed to changing her life. She was a single woman. She had a really small child, like a toddler, and she would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and study, right? She was working, some kind of supermarket checkout job or something, but she would get up super early in the morning and, look after her baby as well, go to her job, get things done, come back, study again at nighttime to be a lawyer. Right, so she put herself through law school basically by being prepared to go the extra mile so she could change her life circumstances. And you can imagine that would have been over several years. So that level of commitment, the universe always responds to that. If you believe in yourself, you will change your life circumstances. But you can be guaranteed she wasn't waking up in the morning and going, oh, I can't do it today, or I'm not going to. She was running a completely different energy, a focus, a passion, a determination, a commitment to change her circumstances and improve her life. And this is why the language that you speak and how it impacts your self-worth is so powerful in regards to the results that you're going to create. It's like Henry Ford. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. You determine whether it's going to happen or not. And a huge component of that is the language that you're saying to yourself. And it's one of the fastest and easiest places to focus your attention to shift things significantly. And again, this is why people recommend doing really simple practices, like when you wake up in the morning, that you say 10 things that you're grateful for. Why? Because it focuses your attention on the way that you want things to go. When somebody pays you money, say thank you. Say thank you out loud to them. To say thank you out loud to the universe. Be in the energy of appreciation for receiving. When you pay a bill, say thank you. Thank you to the electricity company for heating my hot water, for providing me with lights at nighttime, for keeping my house warm. Being in the energy of appreciation. Again, if you look at the word appreciation, you expand your energy and your frequency, which is why it's so powerful in terms of raising your vibration. So folks, we're talking about self-worth today, and just to recap, we've been doing a self-worth week in the Facebook group. If you would like to join to get the last 2 days, which will be today being Thursday and tomorrow being Friday, you're welcome to join the group. If you go to Facebook and search the Intuitive Life Academy by Rebecca Davison, and you'll find the group. You're welcome to join us and get the information from those videos, and there's some worksheets that I have for those as well. So it's a hugely powerful thing to do, to activate and start working with your self-worth and cultivate it so you can end up experiencing self-love, which is the experience of knowing yourself as love and feeling it in your body and being embodied in it. It is a state of being. Like love, like peace, it is a state of being rather than just an emotion. I appreciate love as an emotion, but it's also a state of consciousness, just like peace is. Peace isn't really an emotion either. It's a state of consciousness because it's something that you can live in. Just like love, just like peace, you can live in both of those energetic frequencies. Rather than happiness or excitement, that's an emotion. Why? Because it moves through. You're not in a constant state of those feelings. They move through. You have the experience, it moves through, it will come back again, but it will move through, as opposed to love or peace, which is a constant state of being. So we're talking about self-worth and what the process is. We've talked about what self-love is not. It's not anything external. It is not your money, your diet, your body shape, your hair color, the size of your sex organs. It is not your level of intelligence. It's not your accomplishments. It's not how nice you are. It's not your level of compassion. It's not how much you pray. It's not how spiritual you are. It's not how learned you are. It's not how many programs you've done. It's not what your level of intelligence or whether you've got a master's degree. It's not your house, your car, your clothes, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kids, your family, your social status, your class. It's none of those things. Your self-worth is the quality of the relationship that you're having with yourself. So a really good place to start asking is to ask yourself those questions. Do I like myself? Do I trust myself? Do I back myself? Can I stick up for myself with other people? Do I know how to maintain a good energetic boundary? Am I aware of what's energetically mine and what's somebody else's? Really important thing for empaths to learn that skill, which is to what it takes to have a really good emotional and energetic boundary. So you're very clear on what's yours and what's somebody else's, and that work really comes from doing emotional mastery work, which is one of the steps that I essentially teach people in the work that I do. How do you navigate your emotions with ease and grace and clarity? Because it's so important. A lot of people think that life is punishing them when they have a negative emotion. That's not true. The universe is showing you that something's out of alignment. And a lot of people think that they're wrong because they're having negative emotions and therefore they're out of alignment. It's the way the universe, it's kind of like a guidance system. The universe is showing you something. So if you can even bring the energy of curiosity to your own feelings and start doing the process of self-inquiry, you can really set yourself free. Instead of going, oh, I'm having this really horrible emotion, if you can actually bring the energy of love and acceptance to it and then start investigating it and going, okay, well, what is this emotion showing me? Maybe you just need to sit down and feel it for a while, turn it up, be with it, be present to it, allow the energy to move, and then when you're rested, to actually take some time to be and then start doing some inquiry, right? Like I often say, feel the feeling, but question the belief. You want to question the belief to make sure the belief that you have that's contributed to the feeling is not erroneous. For example, if you're crying and you're upset because you believe that you're not good enough, clearly that is an erroneous belief, right? That is a belief that has been founded in something that is not true. And this is why it can be confusing for people when it comes to their emotions, because it's like they don't know whether they can believe their emotions or not. Your emotions are always correct in the respect that they're reflecting something to you. The reflection can be your thought and belief system. However, that belief system may be erroneous. The belief system may be the part that needs to be addressed. And like I said, to go through those filing cabinets and to get free and clear of the clutter, so you can actually know what is true. Is it true that you're incomplete? No. So if you're running that as a belief at the moment, there's something that needs to be shifted within your subconscious and your filing cabinets so you can actually realize that there's nothing about you that's incomplete. You know, there's a heavy energy that's in place that you've picked up. You've made something mean something, which is contributing to you feeling incomplete. That's not true. Our job is to actually go into your subconscious, shift those limiting beliefs, and bring you back to a place of truth, which is you're an infinite being in a body. However, you know, we need to work with lots of different systems, your rational mind, your subconscious, and your superconscious, and combine all those three elements to really get you in a place. Instead of just knowing these things as a concept, you're actually experiencing it in your physicality, which is really the ascension process, when you're getting your mind, your subconscious, and your superconscious to all work on the same page and in the same direction. And of course your emotional and energy field, then you become unstoppable. Because we talked about how your self-worth, the quality of the relationship that you're having with yourself, your self-worth is untouchable. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can take your self-worth away from you unless you allow it. I've talked about this before, that, you know, when somebody's unkind or cruel, it only hurts to the level that you believe that it's true. Okay, it only hurts to the level that you believe that it's true. You know, like that was Eleanor Roosevelt that came up on the Facebook Live the other day. She said, nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. Nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. So being the person who realizes that if you have wounding inside of yourself, the universe will show you. It's going to show you through other people. It's going to show you through somebody saying something and it just lands in a way that it really stings. Be mindful, and again, feel the feeling, but question the belief. Don't go into blame or attack of the other person. Thank that person for showing you something about yourself. How are you going to know that it's for you? Right? You're going to know that it's for you because of the way that it feels and the way that it lands within you. If it hurts, if your body's responding to it, remember what I said before about your body's wisdom and how your body's communicating with you, you'll feel the discomfort, you'll feel the displeasure, your body will show you. So, and again, when you start to work with all these different elements and you go, oh my goodness, you know, my body is actually really intelligent and clever, and it can show me information beyond my rational mind, because it's almost like my body has this connection to source energy. Like my body is in my soul. My soul's bigger than my body, so I can actually just relax into trusting what wisdom my body has, because, you know, my soul's bigger than my body, so my soul's around my body, above my body, in my body, outside of my body. I can relax into that, and I can start to learn to use how to use my intuition to get information and awareness. And then I can start learning what it is to direct my energy in a way that serves me. And I can use my awareness to show me parts of me that are unhealed. And I can be curious about that. I can develop my self-worth by being curious like I would with somebody else, like seeing myself through the eyes of love, by approaching myself the way that I would like to be approached by somebody else, with love, kindness, compassion, acceptance. When I can truly offer that to myself, I can have the courage to go to those deeper, darker places within me and unlock the door and bring the light in. And the irony is, it's the idea of the door that feels so scary often for people. The idea of going into the darker places. Because you know what it's like, folks. Like if the lights are off and it's nighttime, you go into a dark room, what happens? You just turn the lights on and boom, there's the light. The darkness is gone. And more often than not, that is exactly what happens for people when they go into the darkest places of themselves and they turn the lights on. They discover that there's nothing really there to be afraid of, right? And if there is any shame or guilt there, bringing the light transmutes the energy and shifts it to a higher vibration so they can become free. They can realize what they were really afraid of was probably their own resistance, rather than accepting it and acknowledging what is really there. Because as soon as you accept and acknowledge it, rather than create all that resistance, which is what the darkness really is, it shifts. Right? We go into surrender, we go into acceptance, we allow the energy to be, and we can love it as it is, and it shifts. It doesn't have any hold over us anymore. There is no darkness anymore. We've evaporated it. There's no resistance anymore. So it's easier for us to move forward and to go out and do what it is that we need to do. It's easier for us to show up to our own darkness. It's easier for us to show up to somebody else's. Excuse me. I talked about that. Excuse me. I've talked about that quite extensively, about how we can't be present to somebody else's pain, suffering, hurt, woundedness, anger. We can only do that to the extent that we have been present to our own, which is why it's so powerful to get to know yourself. And it's so important in terms of especially your romantic relationships, but any relationship. The more you get to know yourself, the more you are willing to be present to yourself, the more you can be present to somebody else. You can only be as intimate with others as you are being with yourself. So are you prepared to go deep? Are you prepared to pick up all the rocks and look underneath them? Are you prepared to leave no stone unturned in terms of getting to know yourself? I said this the other day, the unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates said that. I used to love classics at school. It's one of my favorite subjects. And, being the philosopher and actually looking inside yourself and being willing to look, having the courage to look, offering yourself the same energy that you would offer somebody else that you're interested in getting to know. Seeing them as worthy, seeing them as valuable, seeing them with curiosity and enthusiasm and openness and warmth and friendliness, and making yourself accessible to yourself. This is how we can start to learn how to cultivate our self-worth, by being willing to realize that we're already worthy, that there's nothing inside of us that is unlovable. And also too, I think it's really important to reiterate, the universe or God, whatever you want to call it, is not judging you. We do that to ourselves, right? Atonement is realizing when we've made a mistake and that we're willing to correct it. But when it comes to judgment, the universe does not do that. And the universe isn't sitting there going, oh my God, you are wrong and I am right. The universe is impartial. The universe is just sitting there loving you, accepting you, appreciating you. We are the ones who judge or condemn or blame or criticize ourselves. It's also called duality, the light and the dark, the polar opposite. The ego. The egos are edging God out, is creating separation, it's creating disconnection, it's creating fear. When we go into ego, when we see ourselves going into resistance or going into separation, that's when we need to remind ourselves, oh, look what I'm doing. Oh, look, I'm judging that person. Oh, silly me, because we're all connected. We're all one. Or, oh, look, I'm blaming that person. Okay, I'm gonna stop that. I'm going to have that awareness that when I blame that person, who I'm really blaming is myself. All judgment is self-judgment. There is no other way. Why? Because all relationships are formed within yourself. So when you judge somebody else, you're seeing it through your own filter, and that own filter has judgment in it. So you see, it's not about the other person, it's about you. It's about your filter. It's about your judgment. It's about what you're saying to yourself about how other people are showing up. And more often than not, folks, if you are clever and wise, anywhere you judge somebody else, you will take the time to do some self-inquiry and ask yourself, why am I judging that person? You can be guaranteed 1,000,000 coconuts. If you ask that question, it's because you are judging the same thing in yourself. Right? If you're judging somebody for their weight, for their hair color, for the way that they show up, for their makeup, for their clothing, for their intelligence, for their business, on some level, there will be self-referral in that. And that is the path to illumination and awareness. When you're willing to actually see, oh, look, I'm judging somebody else and I'm being unkind and critical, to bring it back to yourself and go, where am I judging myself for the same thing? Bingo! You will find it. And again, don't you love how the universe works, right? It's always bringing us the information that we need to know and be aware of. So if we are judging somebody else, it can be a really great key to what we need to love in ourselves. Alrighty, folks, it has been a privilege and a pleasure as always to connect with you guys. If you would like to connect with me, you can do that either through Facebook. You can find me under Rebecca Davison, www.rebeccadavison.life. If you'd like to connect for a consult, I always offer people a free 25-minute consult so you can gain some clarity on what's going on in your life, increase your self-worth, and create a pathway where you can ascend into higher states of awareness and consciousness. I'm sending you so much love and light. I know it's an exciting week in terms of coming out of quarantine, and now more than ever, we need to learn how to navigate our path with a lot more clarity, sincerity, authenticity, and love. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear any suggestions that you have for the Find Your Bliss radio show. It's always great to be hosted here at Plains FM. Until next week, I'm sending you so much love and lots of light. Bye for now. Bye.